Hey guys, welcome back. Yes, you're seeing my ugly mug for the sixth time today. This is going to be an awesome episode with my brother, a Bergen County boy, North Jersey, doing great things. We're going to be talking about some stuff like mindfulness, peace, finding peace, and in the struggle. And my brother is totally amazing. I've been following him ever since I knew we were going to have him on. And little did I know we're only like 15 minutes away from each other. And he's in Tenafly, and I'm over here in North Arlington. So, Michael, my brother, welcome to the show. How are you?
Pretty good, Richard. It's awesome to be with you. And yeah, two guys from Jersey. As they say, it's important to know a guy. And like
Yeah,
now I know another guy in Jersey,
yeah.
which is really cool. I'm totally stoked for our conversation. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
And I love it. And before we were even talking, you said you and your wife were talking about people that service your vehicles. And down below, my cousin Andrea and Ernie, they own a place in Hackensack on Green Street. And if you want work done, they're the people to do it. They do it right the first time. You don't got to go back. So now, before we even get started, Michael, what's your definition of resiliency?
Yeah, so great question. It's like one of my favorite topics. So there's a Japanese art form and philosophy called kintsugi, Kintsugi. And so kintsugi is, you think about pottery, like a bowl, when it breaks, what they do is they put it back together. They use a tree sap for a lacquer. They dust it with gold, and then they glue the pieces of the pottery back together. And each piece of pottery breaks in its own way. It cracks in its own way. And the gold paint, the lacquer, creates this like scar like with the pottery. And so the whole notion is like what can break can come back into a beautiful state. And the scar lines are basically golden symbols of our strength. So when I think of resilience, I see us sometimes cracking, sometimes breaking as we do, but finding a way to come back together, finding a way to connect, because kintsugi is about connection. So finding a way to connect, one could say finding a way to get back up again. And when we go through that change, those hard moments that make us crack, but we can be put back together, it leaves a scar, it leaves a wrinkle or blemish or whatever. And like those those scars are worth celebrating because it tells a story about like what we've gone through. And for me, when I think of resiliency, I think of kintsugi and the ability to keep going, to come back together after we might have fallen down and cracked or even broken apart.
Now, Michael, I got to admit something to you. A couple weeks ago, I was really pissed off at you, because James Madison whipped our Chanticleer's ass big time. And I was thinking about you as I'm watching the game. But I love
Oh,
James
hey,
Madison.
Jay, Richard, all love your way, man. Like our Dukes are having we're having a good season when it comes to like major sports like football, kicking ass, basketball. Like finally in the top 25 once again. So the purple and gold of JMU is having a good 2023. So we're gonna take it while we can because back in my day the basketball team was not so good. The football team was up and coming, but I'm a proud alum. So yeah.
Well, yeah, and one thing I love about your school is that they have a 96% satisfaction rate
Oh
as
yeah,
far
it's
as students.
insane. It's
It's crazy.
what it's insane. Like the kids that go there love it. Now, if you ask the alumni office, Richard, um, about the alumni giving back to the university. They're like 96% of the kids love it here, but we don't really have a good like alumni donation type of. Not 96% of the former alumni aren't giving back to the university. So I guess if you talk to the alumni officers, work to do. But yeah, like the kids that go there, obviously I'm biased, but I think they're really grounded. Like they're real people, they're kind, they work hard. They want to put something good into the world. And I really enjoyed my time there. It shaped me as into the person I am today. So I'm forever grateful.
Yeah, my boy is Chanticleer. He's a senior at Coastal. So when we were playing that game, I was like Michael's kicking our
Yeah.
ass.
Well, I was kind not to wear my JMU,
Yeah.
get up
Thanks.
for the interview here. Yeah, no problem. Hey, I try to be compassionate, man.
So okay, so tell us a little bit about where'd you come from, where'd you grow up, and how did you get into what you're doing today?
Yeah. So I grew up in Rochester, New York. So Western New York. So huge Bills fan. Go Bills. We've had a little bit of a wild year, but optimistic.
And I just got the mat in 2024, and Mr. Bill is on the front cover.
Yeah, well, yeah. So hey, I think we're gonna get to the playoffs, which is great, and maybe win the division. So we need some help from Baltimore this coming weekend as we sit here recording this. So, but I grew up in Rochester, New York, and I grew up in Rochester when there was like such a thing as winter. So I grew up in a whole bunch of snow, and now it doesn't snow too much anymore. But I wanted to leave Rochester. So that's how I ended up leaving Rochester and going down south to JMU for school. And then from there, a lot of kids either leave JMU in beautiful Harrisonburg, Virginia, and go to Richmond or go to DC. I went to DC, got my first gig. I was selling copiers and facsimiles on Capitol Hill, 100% commission sales. It was it was rough sledding on some months, but actually other months I made a killing. So I tried to learn finances, which I didn't really learn much about in my early days. So I got into a little like financial trouble in my early 20s and had to ask dad for a little bit of a bailout, but met my wife there. We had our first daughter in DC, and then we moved to New Jersey, where we are now, had our second daughter. The corporate gig that I had back then moved us up from DC to New Jersey. Thought we'd be here for a couple years, and now we're here for almost 26. So and so yeah, so that's my arc. Rochester down to Virginia, up to New Jersey. And I spent my career in healthcare. I was a sales and marketing guy. And along the way, I had this horrible near death cycling accident. As you know, I got hit head on by a Ford Explorer riding my bike at a company offsite meeting in New Mexico. And the doctors told my wife, like, we're really not sure how he survived. Had he been, 10 years older or not in shape, your husband would have died before he got to the hospital, because I broke a whole bunch of everything, but I also lacerated the femoral artery in my left leg. So I was bleeding out in the middle of New Mexico. So luckily, I had a great trauma team. They saved my life, they saved my leg. And then I had this long recovery journey. And then in 2014, I left my corporate life because we were going through a massive global restructuring and decided to become an entrepreneur at the tender age of 47. And that's when I got into executive coaching and then eventually mindfulness and teaching meditation to help people like find that sweet spot, because what I saw a lot was a lot of people just going and bottling up the stress, because that's where I was before my accident. And I thought, okay, I think I survived my accident to help other people unpack their backpack so they don't run into some of the things I ran into in my life. And so that's the work I do today. I talk about resilience and change and helping leaders lead better, but also helping them be more mindful on how they approach their life and career and everything else that, makes up this wonderful gift that we all have.
Well, yeah, but now you're also a speaker, podcast host, coach.
Yeah.
You do a lot. But let's get back to the mindfulness because I have two friends, Mr. John Macaskill, retired Navy SEAL commander,
Yeah. Great guy.
and also Will Schneider, his partner.
Yep.
And they taught me, they saved me, because I was so stressed out at one point, and they're just like, Rich, even if you just take 2 minutes of your day and just be quiet and be mindful and have some gratitude, your whole life turns around, and you don't have to sit in a position with your hands folded
Yeah.
on the floor, and you don't have to meditate for 4 hours a day. Even 2 to 3 minutes a day before your day starts can put you in a whole different peaceful realm. So talk about that, because a lot of people, when you hear mindfulness or meditation, you're like, oh, that's crazy stuff. People are going to start people are going to start levitating. So talk
Yeah.
about what mindfulness actually is.
So glad you asked. And John McCaskill is a great guy. I had him on my podcast as well. So it was good to talk to John about mindfulness. And you're like spot on. Like I think a lot of people, when they think of mindfulness, they think of like, well, it's like something that women do sometimes, or it's like woo woo or way out there in the levitation part of it, or you got to sit in a certain way. And there's definitely an aspect of mindfulness where people like do that. But for me, it it's really simple. It's like being mindful and practicing mindfulness. It's almost like surfing, right? So we can't stop the waves of the ocean, right? The great Atlantic Ocean that we're close to here in Jersey, the waves keep coming into the Jersey shore. We can't stop the waves. So we can't stop the stress and all the different things happening in life. But we can learn how to surf. And so mindfulness to me is finding a way to surf, to like find that sweet spot, that balance. So all the waves are happening, all these things are happening in your life with kids, with your partner, your wife, your business, like a whole bunch is happening. And that's just like in your personal life. And then you take like society and what's happening across the planet. There's a lot coming at us and there's a lot to get worked up about. So mindfulness allows us to like surf the waves of life, surf our stress. It's not going to make stress go away, but it's going to change your relationship with it. And it's been proven to have like other benefits, like helping with blood pressure and potentially helping with sleep or dealing with pain. That I've had to deal with since my accident, like sort of chronic pain, just dealing with all that. And a lot of people will say, well, you got to practice for X minutes a day. And here's the thing, mindfulness has been something that people have practiced for 2,500 years. So it's proven to be effective. But one thing that we don't know is like, well, how long do you have to do it? And I'm a big believer in like short practices, much like Richard, you just mentioned. Like, if you don't have 10 minutes in the morning, we're cool, all good. But I bet you have 5 times throughout the day where you have 2 minutes just to slow things down, focus in on your breath, and just relax the shoulders, let go of some of that stress. Because us guys, we were never really taught how to deal with stress growing up. We just,
Mhm.
the way I did it, I just packed it down. Like I didn't, sometimes I'd get pissed off and I'd blow my top. That's not a really great way to deal with stress. So then I learned, okay, well, I can't do that. So I'm just going to pack it down. I'm going to put a rock in my backpack and I would carry it around with me. But that's not healthy either because it just bottles up and builds up and builds up. So what we do is we, have these micro moments throughout the day where we just like slow it down, focus in on the breath or focus in on the body. And we have a way of letting go of the stress so it doesn't build up. Because what happens when we let the stress build up, we go home after our job because we try to keep it all together at work because we have customers and colleagues. But when we go home, like the dog barks, the kids do something, they spill the milk, like something happens. And it's just enough, and we snap, and then we yell, or we get pissed off. And then we tend to beat ourselves up for like doing that because we know it's not the right way to handle things, but that's sort of the cycle that we get into. So mindfulness can do so much to help us, you know, have a little bit more awareness when we're like doing our work, running our businesses, more focus when we need to focus. But it's that ability to surf the waves that I like. Just like, like we're not we're not going to change it, but we're going to learn how to like deal with the stress in a healthier way, so we can have better relationships in our lives.
But for me, like before we even got on, I'm like, oh shit, I got to take all this garbage out because of Christmas, and
Yeah.
and then and then I start thinking 30. It'll be 35 years since I got sober on New Year's Eve, and 35
Congratulations.
years ago, I was living in a crack house, eating off a hot plate. And so now I'm like, wait a minute, I'm mad because I have to take garbage out of my own house, of
Yeah.
a house that I own. Because sometimes I think even with mindfulness, we just have to kind of change our mindsets from I have to I get to.
Yeah.
Once I
Perfect.
once I flip my mindset to say I get to take the garbage out of my own house because I had an awesome Christmas with my kids and they were able to open gifts and stuff. So I think sometimes it's, and I wrote it down because as we're talking, I'm writing stuff down because I do have a traumatic brain injury. So if I don't write stuff down, I forget. But we live in a world of WMDs, world of mass distractions. And
Yes.
sometimes we get so focused on everything else that we kind of are not in the moment. Like I'm talking with you. I'm not worried about my phone. I'm not worried about what I'm doing later. I'm just focused on you. And I see so many people nowadays, they go to a concert and I got their phone up looking at the phone as the concert's going on. And then they'll, how was the concert? Oh, I don't remember. I was on my phone. I'm like, enjoy the moment. We're not getting any more moments. Enjoy the moment. So talk about that. Is talk about living in the moment.
Yeah. God, so important. And like, yeah, like I've gone like, you go to see a Yankee game, right? Or you go to a concert at, the MetLife, and everyone has their phone out and they're like recording it all and taking photos. And I'm like, are you even paying attention to the game or the show? Like, just, sometimes we just got to put our phone down and just like live the experience and allow the memory to take hold. So hey, our phones can be really great. As I have an app which is a good way to use the phone, but our phones can be what that dopamine response thing, and can get quite addicting. And there's a whole bunch of us that are addicted to our phones. We can't put them down, and we use them as a way to distract ourselves from the current moment because this moment right here is the only one that we have. We can't change what happened 15 minutes ago or 15 days ago. And we can't do anything about what's going to happen in an hour. But where we can make a really wise decision, where we can be thoughtful and really like live, is right now. And it's so it, but it takes it takes some practice in our world, like our minds do wander. Like there was a research study, I think it was out of Harvard, that said that our minds wander 47% of the time. So we have a wandering mind. So, but we practice. Part of mindfulness is not to make our mind go blank. That's not the whole purpose. So we focus in on our breath and our mind wanders, and then we notice it and we just come back and focus in on the breath. And so each time we get pulled away, it's almost like a bicep curl at the gym. Like, our minds get pulled away and then we pull it back to our breath. And we just each time it's like a rep of mindfulness. And what that does is it helps us develop the ability to focus in on the present moment. So when we go to a concert or we're talking to our partner, our wife, our husband, or our kids, or whatever, or something at work, we have the ability to really listen, really focus in on something so we can make a stronger connection and we can get more things done that way. And that's, mindfulness. A lot of guys will come to me like, oh, I don't want to do that. It's going to make me soft. I'm going to lose my edge. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Exact opposite. It's going to sharpen your edge. It's going to allow you to compete at a higher level. That's why a lot of pro athletes do mindfulness, because they know it allows them to compete, especially when it gets stressful. And so to me, it sharpens our saw. It doesn't dull it, because we can be in the moment, and that's where we perform our goodness.
No, and I think that's one thing about veterans. It's like, or first responders, is like when the shit hits the fan, everything slows down for us, and then we're
Yeah,
just worried about moment by moment. Am I going to get out of this fire? Do I have to lay down suppression fire? We're not worried about 3 weeks from now doing this. We're just in the moment trying to survive for this moment. And I think that's one thing that veterans are very good at, is starting to say, okay, this is where we're at. We got to get through this to get to there. I'm not worried about there. I'm
yeah.
going to worry about this right now. And I think, let's talk about something, because, and I'm coming up on a year. I interviewed somebody on New Year's Eve last year, and he said, I want you to pick out 2 words for 2023. And my words were attention and intention. Because
Oh,
I
yeah.
believe
Cool.
if you live with intention, you're more grounded, you're more focused. Like for me, if it's not God, family and friends, and business, I don't have time for it. And I
Yeah.
find myself saying no a lot. So talk about that as living intentionally. And because like my friend James Clear wrote in Atomic Habits, he says, if you don't rule your day's going to rule you. So talk about living
Yeah.
with intention, Michael.
Yeah. I love James's work, because like my meditation practice of pause, breathe, reflect is based on small steps that James writes about. Small steps consistently with some frequency over time. That's how we develop a healthy habit. But this whole notion of like setting our intentions. So part of my morning routine is I wake up, and I've been doing this really since my recovery began. I wake up, I grab some water. Sometimes I like mix some green shit in it and be healthy. But I have water, and then I just spend, before I get on my phone, before I'm like looking at the computer, I spend 5-10 minutes just thinking about, okay, where do I want to place my intentions? What are my intentions for the day? How do I want to show up, basically? Like the language I would use, because when I was a young kid, I used to skip stones on my
Mm-hmm.
grandmother's pond in New Hampshire, like those ripples. So
Yeah.
it's all like energy. And so my feeling is, okay, what kind of ripple do I want to put into the world today? And hopefully it's a good one. So that's my intention. Like, how do I want to show up? And then the attention piece of it, okay, well, wherever our attention goes, our energy flows. So what do I want to pay attention to? Not the shiny objects, but the things that matter, like you just mentioned, God, family, friends, right? Um, like you get really clear on, all right, what are the first principles? What are the values that you wish to honor? So when I work with people, I'm like, let's start here. Let's define what our values are, what your first principles are, and then we work on building the community around you. So you have like first values, strong community, a strong purpose or mission, and then hopefully a mindfulness practice. So those are your four cornerstones. And so each day you show up and say, okay, well, how can I honor my values? That's where I'm going to set my intentions on, and I'm going to pay attention to those. I'm going to pay attention to the people around me, because they're going to bring out the best in me, and hopefully I'll bring out the best in them. And that's how we carry forward in the day. So we live a aligned life, aligned to the our values. And there's too many of us not living life this way. We're winging it. We're flying by the seat of our pants. And if you want success in life, you got to have some structure to it. It doesn't have to be rigid, but some structure to say, okay, here's where I'm going. This is the path I'm going down. If you don't, then yeah, it's really the luck of the draw, if you will. Some things will work out, but a lot of things won't.
Well, even like when I had David Meltzer on the show, and he's got a $20 billion company. He owns a $20 billion company with Warren Moon.
Yeah, Dave's awesome.
And, when I had him on the show, he's like, he schedules even time to call mom, time to call his daughter. He said he lives by his schedule. He says, because if I don't schedule everything, nothing's going to get done. He said, because what gets measured gets cut. And for me, I live by his schedule. Even if I'm going to play video games, I'm going to be like, okay, I got my new NBA 2K, my new Madden. I'm going to carve out an hour today to play. But I carve it out and I plan for it. I mean, like you said, you can't be rigid, but you have to have some kind of plan. I love what you're talking about that. But something I think me and you are aligned with is gratitude.
Yeah.
Like me, when I go to bed at night, this is my gratitude hack, and it's changed my life. I reach over, I pray for my wife, I pray for her happiness and her health, and then I pray to God for my regular prayers, and then I say 3 things that happened today. Lord, I'm so grateful for 3 amazing things happened, and one of them is going to be having this conversation with you. So I go to bed thinking about gratitude. And then I think about what I'm going to do the next morning. And then when I wake up in the morning, if I can see something, because I lost 80% of my vision 3 years ago, I say, Lord, thank you. Today's going to be an amazing day. I don't know what you got planned for me, but I'm excited for it. And I wake up with gratitude. And I find if you go to bed with gratitude and you wake up with gratitude, your day is going to be a lot better than if you just got up and got on your phone as soon as you woke up. So talk about gratitude.
Yeah. So gratitude was, Richard, that was like a game changer for me when I was in the hospital. Because in the early days of my recovery, and you've gone through, a lot of pain and suffering as well. When I was in the hospital, it can get really lonely. And for the beginning, all I could focus in on was everything that I didn't have anymore and everything I couldn't do. Like that was my focus. It was a scarcity mindset, one of loss, of this sucks. Why'd this happen to me? All that. I couldn't even spell gratitude. And then I found gratitude, and I was like, okay, well, what a mentor shared with me, like, well, do you have a gratitude practice? I'm like, what is that? And so I slowly discovered it, and it helped me in so many ways really see what I still had. helped me see what I still could do. So each night, much like you, each night I still do it to this day as I get ready for bed. I'm brushing my snags, washing my face, doing all those things. I think about, okay, what are three things, just like you, and this, sit down here will be part of my three tonight. Like, what made the day special? What am I grateful that I got to do? And it can even be some of the shitty moments. That's what I discovered along the way, because the tough moments do lead to some of our best growth. So if I'm in a really crappy situation, like I'm struggling, I try to say, okay, well, what part of this am I grateful for? Because I have faith, I have belief, because I have a history of this, that if I go through a tough moment and I stick it out, I'm probably going to learn something about myself and I'm going to grow in such a way. So I end my day with gratitude, and it's a perfect way to just like slow things down with some positivity so I can go to sleep and get a good night's rest, as opposed to being on my phone until I'm like so damn tired I just like crash, or like going through doom scrolling like the news. So I end the day with something positive, and then the next morning, what I try to do is I take a little bit of an extra moment when my feet first hit the ground. Like I get out of bed, and for a lot of us guys of a certain age, we need to get to the restroom pretty quickly. But I decide, like, this is part of my practice. I get out of bed, I turn around, I put my feet on the ground, and I just notice. It's like 10 seconds. What it feels like for my feet to hit the ground, because that's an indication to me is like, hey, guess what? Lucky day. You made it through the night. You get another crack at this thing called life. God was looking down at you and said, okay, we're going to do this again. And that's my indication. And then I usually, hightail it to the bathroom because, we got to pee. So like, but, but, but I start my day in gratitude. I end my day in gratitude, just like you. And then what happens as you practice it, you find other things to be grateful for throughout the day. And it's not denying some of the stuff that really sucks and it's hard. It just is a great counterbalance to all that stuff. So, because it's not all bad and it's not all rainbows and unicorns, but it's a mixture. And if we can live fully awake to all of it, then we can learn how to surf better and, you know, be thoughtful about how we're living life and not take it for granted.
But now, like you just mentioned, and this is something that I've been doing. When you become a certain age, I'll be 55 next month. You get up in the middle of the night, you go to the bathroom. So when
Yep.
I get back in bed, that minute or two that I'm still awake, I say, Lord, thank you. Thank you. I have this. I could be quiet for a minute or two, and the house is quiet. Everybody's sleeping, and that's when I get my minute or two. So even if you can't get it during the day, if you get up and pee in the middle of the night, you can still have 2 to 3 minutes of quietness and just mental preparation for the next day, right?
Absolutely. And hey, I do that too. Like, it's and hey, you can be grateful for the fact that you have indoor plumbing, because that's not a thing that everyone has. Like
Yeah.
the ability to get up and, you know, thank goodness for that, right? So there's so many ways to look at it. We can walk through life thinking that everything's happening to us, or we can look at life and say, okay, how is this moment happening for me? And that's not easy in all cases. Some things are really hard when we lose someone and we're grieving and there's loss, but we can see reasons to be hopeful, reasons to believe, to have faith, to be optimistic. And when we look at the world that way, we're going to show up different action, because we're going to want to create something. We want to build something. We want to make a difference. when we look at life that way. And that, I think, is just a healthier way of approaching life, and it can lift people up. And with all the different things happening in the world, we need more people that have faith and belief that we can make things better. And I think that's, when I think about this country, the US, that we both sit in right at this moment, we're optimistic people. We're hopeful people. We have faith and belief. And we need to be able to tap into it, especially when things feel hard, because we have future generations to look out for. Like, I show up every day to help others, but also show up because I want to leave the planet, New Jersey, in a better position for my girls and their kids if they decide to have kids.
Yeah, and and like my mentor, Mr. Ed Milet, he told me, he said, Rich, everything that's ever happened to you has happened for you. It
Yeah,
hasn't happened to you. And everything is a teachable moment. So why not trade your post-traumatic stress for post-traumatic growth? And that
yeah,
just changed my whole life, because now I realize whatever happens in life, it's all happening for me. And
yeah,
it's either gonna help me, or it's gonna be a lesson on what not to do. Right?
absolutely. Like, my feeling is like we win some and we learn some. You know, sometimes we go up to bat, we're going to hit a home run. Awesome. Sometimes it's a grand slam, even better. And sometimes we're going to strike out. In all cases, there's always learning, and and having a having learned something, even from the strikeout, is a win. So the way I look at it is like, there's only winning, because if we learn something, that's a win that we can apply to our next time up at bat. But
As long as you're failing forward,
yeah,
it's all
yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're, but if you strike out and then the next time up at bat, you're like, oh, last time I struck out. I hope I don't strike out again. Like, I probably am going to strike out. Like, just, and you get into that negative self narrative, and then you strike out, and you're like, see, I knew I was going to strike out. It's like, well, you sort of set it up that way. Like, you got to go. If you're in sales professionally, or you play Major League Baseball where the success rate isn't great. Like, if you bat 300, you're going to the Hall of Fame. Like, 7 times out of 10, you're not going to be getting a hit. You're going to fail, basically. So, like, there's always a chance to, like, shift your mindset and believe, like, no, like, this customer I'm about to see, or this at bat, I'm going to get a hit. Like, you got to go in believing that. If you don't, then it's probably not going to happen for you.
Well,
And you got to
I'm a
have
big
that optimism.
and I'm a big Yankees fan. I've been a Yankees fan since I've been a kid. But everybody talks about, the Babe calling his shot, but they
Oh
don't
yeah,
realize how many years he led the league in strikeouts to get to be the Babe. You know what I mean? So sometimes you have to strike out in order to hit the home run.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, like, the thing is, he's going to strike out, and a lot of players nowadays strike out, but like, like, if you bat, like, now 210, 205, you bat your weight, but you jack it out of the park 48 times, people are going to remember the 48 times.
Yeah.
And and we're all going to strike out in life. That's part of it. Like, if you're competing, if you're in the game, you're gonna have some at bats that are not going to be so great. Okay, let's accept it for what it is. We try to minimize them as much as we can, but it's going to happen. But we can all come in with the attitude. Okay, this time up, this is my at bat. I'm going out. I'm getting a hit. And it's starting with that intention that you talked about, Richard. Like, I intend to get a hit, and my attention is going to be focused right on the pitcher and the ball, and not
Yeah.
somewhere else. Like,
And if that bet
someone in the
never comes
stands.
off your shoulder, you're not going to be in the major leagues for a long
No,
period of
that's a
time.
backwards K, baby. That's like you're going down to Wilkes-Barre Scranton when that happens.
The rail riders, baby, the rail riders.
Yeah,
So
or back in the day when I was, it was Columbus was the AAA team of the Yankees.
yeah. So let's talk about your app, because some of my friends, Mr. Anson, just came out with an app called Mental, which I love the Mental app. It's a great app. So talk about your app and tell what you got going on.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Richard, to share the app. So
I
my
actually
app.
downloaded your app. I'm actually using your app.
Oh, cool, awesome.
So
So it's called Pause, Breathe, Reflect, as you know. You can find it in the Apple Store and Google Play. And I really designed it for people who are newer to meditation and mindfulness, people who might feel they're too busy for it. Because what I do is I try to come up with a bunch of shorter practices, 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes, short practices that you can come back to throughout the day. And I also do a live practice a few times a week. So it's secular. Like, I try to bring everyone in. It's not woo woo. It's not like way out there. We're not talking about a whole bunch of Buddhism and stuff like that. Like, I try to make it really practical, really relatable to help everyone. Just like, let's slow this, let's slow this thing down a bit. Let's breathe. Let go, ease some of our stress, and bring some of that intentionality, that thoughtfulness to our lives. And the really cool thing that we're doing, it's now a year old. We're in our second year. We just started our second year. Now folks can join and pay what they can, so they can have their first year and pay as little as $1 to join, which is really cool. There's hardly no risk now. So you join for $1, pay what you can, and I'm gonna be right there by your side to help you learn how to do this and develop a healthy habit. And I come at it from the world of being a corporate executive and coming at it from like recovering from my near-death cycling accident. So I come at it from very much a guy on the streets who like is a qualified teacher, but I really try to make it inviting and practical for everyone to do, because we live in a period of time where it's crazy. The pace of life is super fast, and we need things to help us slow down just a bit. Like, if you drive down the New Jersey Turnpike 95, it's one kind of ride. Yeah, you'll get to Delaware in less than 2 hours, but it will be stressful and you'll probably miss a lot. If you can drive like 75 or 70, you're still going at a pretty good clip, but the ride is more enjoyable. It's less stressful. And you're probably going to see something that you might have missed when you're driving 95. And you'll learn how to surf better. So if you go to the Jersey Shore, you can enjoy the shore a little bit more than you did before.
And one thing I think is important, I don't hear a lot of people talking about it. Like on my home screen on my phone, I have my most important apps first, and your app is in the top 3.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
But
Thank you.
this way, I know that I'm going to hit that app the first thing when I get up in the morning, and all the other bullshit will be at the end of my app. So you can actually move your apps around to where the most important stuff is there first, and then all the crap is at the end.
Yeah.
And I think that
Yeah.
would help a lot of people out, because a lot of times they get on and
Yeah.
the first thing, their first app icon is Facebook or YouTube
Yeah.
or TikTok, instead of
Instagram or
an app
whatever.
like
Yeah.
yourself, to where you could just click on and get your 2 or 3 minutes of reflection and gratitude before you get to all the other crap.
Absolutely. Well, you can, with our app, you can create a widget, and that
Yeah.
gives you a little icon where you can do that. And so I share that with everyone. In fact, when people come onto the app, there's a little welcome video, and one of the welcome videos is like, hey, make sure you do a pause, breathe, reflect widget. So it's right there. Because yeah, my thing is, you know, keep on coming back to the app a few times throughout the day. Just don't let this stress build up. Like, you know, so many of us, we we're going through the day, and it's like one little thing after another, and it just builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up, builds up. And then we go home, and you know, we might have a drink or two in a way to like numb the stress, but you know, that's not a healthy way of dealing with it. We might do more work, not a healthy way of dealing with it. We might snap at someone. Um, again, not a healthy way of dealing with it. So my feeling is like, well, hey, let's unload some of the stress throughout the day so it doesn't build up. So when you get home, you can be at home and really enjoy, you know, the people who are around you, and just enjoy that aspect of your life, you know, or be able to respond to things at work in a better way. You know, especially for so many people who are running their own businesses where there's a lot of pressure, or in corporate life where there's a lot of pressure. Like, we have to have better ways of dealing with the stress, and especially us guys, because there's so many guys that I know that reach our age, Richard, and you know, the burden of mental health and our suicide rate for guys of our age is alarmingly on the increase. So we need things like pause, breathe, reflect to help us take care of our mental health. You know, it's not soft, it's not weak, it's so needed. I would say it's a courageous thing to do as men today. It would be one thing we would do, would practice mindfulness.
Yeah, I love that. And guys, if anybody's watching this and you're feeling the stress of the holidays and you need help, dial hashtag 988 and you can actually get help right now. Just, they'll connect you with somebody if you're struggling with mental health issues today, right now. So last question, because this is a teaching podcast. If somebody out there is struggling with their mental health, what would be your top three pieces of advice so they can start finding some peace and clarity in their life today?
Yeah, Richard, such a great question. So one, the fact that they're aware that they're struggling is a good first step. Then I would say, don't be bashful to ask for help of some form or another. When I was going through my recovery, I didn't want to ask for help initially. I thought it was weak. I, you know, I thought I didn't need help. And then someone really challenged me, which I'm really thankful that he did. He said, "Hey, listen, asking for help isn't a sign that you're weak. It's a statement that you're not quitting, that you want to stay in this game. So, like, lose that belief that asking for help is some form of weakness. It's not. It's a statement like, we're doing this thing. We're going to stay in it because we all need help from time to time. So that help can be, you know, talking to a professional therapist. You know, there are therapists you can see in person. There's like an app called BetterHelp that you can
Mhm.
tap
Yep.
into. So that can be needed. So that might be worthwhile. Mindfulness can be really beneficial. And my feeling is you would want to practice mindfulness from a teacher who is trauma informed as a teacher, which I am. There are a lot of people out there that talk about mindfulness and meditation that are not trauma informed and trained that way. So I would think about doing mindfulness, but mindfulness is not therapy and therapy is not mindfulness. So it might be you want to tap into a therapist and you may also benefit from a mindfulness practice. The third thing is making sure that you have, I'm a cyclist, in my heart. So a group of cyclists in a bike race like the Tour de France is called a peloton. So they ride together. And so my feeling is like, make sure you know who's in your peloton. Who are you riding with in life? Who's bringing out the best in you, and are you bringing out the best in them? Because as we ride together in life, sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need someone to break the wind for us, or to give us a water bottle, or a goo, or a gel, or what have you. So tap into your community. So those three things. Seek out therapy if you think it's the avenue that you need to go down. Mindfulness, like pause, breathe, reflect, can be really helpful. And tap into your community, the people around you. And the overarching theme is don't be worried about asking for help. Think of it as a statement that you're still in this game and you just need a little support like we all do. And so that would be my advice.
And I love it, Michael. I'm so grateful that we finally got a chance to hang out. I want to publicly
Yes.
thank your assistant. She's helped so much, and I just want to say thank you for keeping us all in the loop and keeping us on track. So I just want to publicly say thank you.
You're the best, Richard. I'm so stoked that we were able to do this and make this happen. And now we got to get a cannoli.
Yeah, definitely. And guys, as you know, I'm a big Joel Osteen guy, and something that he says, and I try to end it every show with it, that we have a choice every day to be the victim or the victor. And you guys are watching this show. You guys show up every day. You guys are victors and no longer playing the victim game. So make sure you check out Michael. Just check out I didn't even mention your podcast. Talk about your podcast and how we can find it.
Yes. Okay. So the podcast is called Kintsugi, KINTSUGI. So we'll end it as we began when we talked about resiliency. So the Kintsugi podcast, it's stories of connection. There are 2 episodes that come out each week. So you can find it wherever you grab your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, you name it. People can also find me at pausebreathereflect.com. And then from a coaching, speaking perspective, michaelobrienshift.com. Those are my websites. And then from there, you can find me on social media and all that jazz. But those are the 3 big platforms. But I hope people will check out Kintsugi. It's all about celebrating connection and celebrating the scars that we all have.
I love it. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I'm glad we finally got to get together, and have a happy new year, brother. And we got to get together in the new year, go out for lunch and hang out.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I'm totally down for that.
All right, my brother. Well, have an amazing week, and kiss your bride for us, and have a happy New Year's.
You too, man. Happy New Year, Richard.